Hannibal was a renowned Carthaginian general and one of history's most exceptional military strategists. He led the Carthaginian forces against Rome during the Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BCE, and remained an unwavering opponent of Rome and its allies until his death. Hannibal, the son of the renowned Carthaginian general Hamilcar Barca, had a life shaped by conflict and his fierce opposition to Rome. His early life is documented by the Greek historian Polybius and the Roman historian Livy. According to their accounts, Hannibal was taken to Spain by his father, where he swore an oath of eternal hostility against Rome, a pledge that would define his life. From Hamilcar's death in 229 to 228 BCE until his own passing around 183 BCE, Hannibal was engaged in an almost unbroken struggle with the Roman Republic. Hannibal's military career began under the guidance of Hasdrubal, Hamilcar's son-in-law and successor in Spain. Recognized for his leadership skills, Hannibal quickly rose through the ranks. After Hasdrubal's assassination in 221 BCE, the army, impressed by his capabilities, proclaimed Hannibal its commander-in-chief at the age of 26, a decision that was soon ratified by the Carthaginian government. As commander, Hannibal focused on consolidating Carthaginian control in Spain. He strengthened alliances, married a Spanish princess named Emils, and subdued various tribes. His campaigns included defeating the Alcaides and capturing their capital, Althea, as well as suppressing the Vacii in the northwest. Using the strategic seaport of Carthage, modern Cartagena, as his base, Hannibal achieved a decisive victory over the Carpetani near the Tagus River in 221 BCE. In 219 BCE, Hannibal launched an attack on Saguntum, a significant Iberian city south of the Ebro River. Although the Ebro was established as a northern boundary of Carthaginian influence following the First Punic War, Rome had ties of friendship with Saguntum, viewing the attack as a violation of their sphere of influence. Despite being wounded, Hannibal led an 8-month siege that culminated in the city's fall. Rome, angered by Carthage's refusal to surrender Hannibal, declared war. This marked the beginning of a Second Punic War, a conflict in which Hannibal would play a central role against Rome. Gaul was a historical region of Western Europe, primarily encompassing what is now modern-day France, along with parts of Belgium, Luxembourg, western Switzerland, and northern Italy. It was inhabited by Celtic tribes collectively known as the Gauls. The region was known for its tribal societies, rich culture, and fierce warriors. Gaul played a significant role in ancient history, particularly in its interactions with the Roman Republic and Empire. By the time of Hannibal's campaigns, parts of Gaul were under Roman influence, though much of the region remained independent and was ruled by its native tribes. In the winter of 219 to 218 BCE, Hannibal stationed himself in Cartagena, modern-day Spain, to prepare for his ambitious campaign against Rome. While he left his brother Hasdrubal in charge of a sizable force to defend Spain and North Africa, Hannibal focused on leading an invasion into Italy. In April or May of 218 BCE, he crossed the Ebro River with an army originally numbering around 90,000, including approximately 12,000 cavalry and 37 war elephants. However, he left behind at least 20,000 troops in Spain to protect his supply lines and maintain control over the region. As Hannibal advanced through the Pyrenees, his forces encountered fierce resistance from the local tribes. The difficult terrain, constant skirmishes, and desertion by some of his Spanish troops significantly reduced his army's size. By the time Hannibal reached the Rhone River, his numbers had dwindled, but he encountered little opposition from the tribes of southern Gaul. Meanwhile, Rome, having recently declared war in response to Hannibal's actions at Saguntum and his crossing of the Ebro, dispatched the Roman general Publius Cornelius Scipio to intercept him. Scipio, initially delayed by a rebellion in northern Italy, transported his army by sea to Massilia, modern Marseille, an allied Roman city. With the coastal route into Italy effectively blocked by Roman forces and Massilian allies, Hannibal opted to march inland. As Scipio advanced north along the Rhone's right bank, he learned that Hannibal had already crossed the river and was marching north on the opposite side. Recognizing Hannibal's likely intention to cross the Alps into Italy, Scipio returned to northern Italy to prepare for his arrival. The exact details of Hannibal's crossing of the Rhone remain a topic of debate among historians. Polybius writes that Hannibal crossed the river at a point 4 days' march from the sea, likely near forks, opposite Alps, or at one of the natural fording locations between Beaucaire and Avignon. Hannibal utilized locally commandeered boats and coracles to ferry his troops across, while constructing rafts covered with earth for the elephants. Horses were transported in large boats or made to swim across. As the Carthaginian army prepared to cross, hostile Gauls on the opposite bank attempted to block their passage. In response, Hannibal sent a detachment under Hanno to cross the river upstream, flank the Gauls, and attack them from behind. This maneuver scattered the opposing forces, allowing Hannibal's army to complete the crossing unopposed. After crossing the Rhone, Hannibal was met by friendly Gallic leaders, including representatives of the Boii, a Celtic tribe from northern Italy that had suffered from Roman territorial encroachments. Their assistance, including valuable knowledge of the Alpine passes, was crucial to Hannibal's plan. With their guidance, Hannibal marched about 80 miles, 130 kilometers, northward into a region described by Polybius as the Island. This fertile triangle of land, likely bordered by the Rhone, the Isère River, and surrounding hills, was inhabited by the Allobroges tribe. Hannibal found himself intervening in a local conflict between two brothers vying for leadership. By supporting the elder brother, Brancus, Hannibal secured much-needed supplies for his army, which had traveled roughly 750 miles, 1,210 kilometers, over 4 grueling months from Cartagena. With his army resupplied and the Alpine passes mapped out, Hannibal was ready to undertake the next stage of his campaign, the legendary crossing of the Alps into Italy. The details of Hannibal's daring Alpine crossing, preserved primarily by the historian Polybius, offer insight into one of history's most remarkable military feats. Polybius himself is believed to have traveled the route, lending credibility to his account. Hannibal's journey was fraught with challenges, including opposition from local tribes, treacherous terrain, and harsh weather. The first major resistance came from a faction of the Allobroges tribe, likely angered by Hannibal's earlier intervention in favor of Brancus during a local conflict. These tribes ambushed Hannibal's rear column, possibly along the narrow Isère River corridor near modern-day Grenoble. The high ridges of the Chartreuse and Belladon massifs made the location ideal for an ambush. Though Hannibal managed to repel the attack, the skirmish inflicted heavy losses on his forces. After 3 days of struggle, Hannibal captured a nearby Gallic settlement, providing his army with crucial rations for the next few days. Continuing along river valleys, possibly those of the Isère and Arc rivers, Hannibal's army faced increasing elevation and worsening conditions. On the 4th day, another ambush awaited them near a white rock location, believed to be a day's march from the Alpine summit. The attackers, unidentified Gauls, rolled massive stones from the cliffs above, causing chaos among Hannibal's troops and animals. The pack animals panicked, losing their footing on the steep and narrow paths. To counter the threat, Hannibal took refuge with his forces on a large, exposed rock while his horses and baggage animals crossed the gorge below under cover of night. Before dawn, he launched a surprise attack on the few Gauls guarding the gorge's entrance, clearing the path for the rest of his army. Upon reaching the summit, Hannibal camped there for several days to recover and regroup. Polybius notes that the summit was high enough for snow drifts from the previous winter to persist, suggesting an altitude of at least 8,000 feet, 2,400 meters. However, the exact route Hannibal used remains a mystery. Neither Polybius nor Livy, who wrote about the campaign 150 years later, provided the name of the pass. Modern scholars have debated several possible routes, including the lower Montgenèvre, Little St. Bernard, and Mount Cenis passes, as well as the higher Col du Clapier, Savincoche, and Col de la Traversette. The descent into Italy proved equally perilous. Snowfall and rock slides rendered the narrow trails hazardous, forcing the army to spend an entire day clearing a path for the elephants and pack animals. Finally, after 15 days in the Alps and a 5-month journey from Cartagena, Hannibal descended into Italy. His once mighty army was reduced to about 25,000 infantry, 6,000 cavalry, and most of his 37 war elephants. Despite these immense challenges, Hannibal succeeded in leading his diverse and weary forces across the Alps, overcoming the harsh climate, treacherous terrain, and relentless tribal resistance. His arrival in Italy marked the beginning of a campaign that would forever change the course of Roman history. After crossing the Alps into Italy, Hannibal's army was significantly reduced in size and faced formidable opposition from Roman forces. Initially outnumbered, Hannibal confronted Publius Cornelius Scipio, who had hurried to defend the Roman colonies of Placentia, modern Piacenza, and Cremona near the Po River. The first clash occurred on the plains west of the Ticino River, where Hannibal's superior Numidian cavalry defeated the Romans, wounding Scipio and forcing his army to retreat to Placentia. Hannibal next engaged the Roman forces of Sempronius Longus at the Battle of the Trebia River in December 218 BC. By luring Sempronius's army into a trap, Hannibal achieved a decisive victory. This success not only boosted Hannibal's position, but also encouraged the Gauls and Ligurians to join his cause, significantly increasing his army's strength with Celtic recruits. In the spring of 217 BCE, Hannibal resumed his advance, moving as far as the marshy plains of the Arno River. While crossing the swamps, he suffered from an eye infection that left him partially blind. Despite this setback, Hannibal outmaneuvered the Roman army of Gaius Flaminius near Arretium, modern Arezzo. Using strategic deception, he forced Flaminius into a vulnerable position, leading to the Battle of Lake Trasimene. In this engagement, Hannibal's forces ambushed and annihilated the Roman army, killing at least 15,000 soldiers and capturing an equal number. Reinforcements sent to aid Flaminius under Gaius Centenius were intercepted and destroyed by Hannibal's troops. Rather than march on the heavily fortified city of Rome, Hannibal chose to rest his army in Picenum during the summer of 217 BC. Later that year, he moved through Apulia and Campania, engaging in skirmishes with the Roman forces under Quintus Fabius Maximus Cunctator, who employed delaying tactics to avoid direct confrontation. In early 216 BCE, Hannibal seized the Roman supply depot at Cannae on the Aufidus River. This set the stage for the infamous Battle of Cannae in August 216 BC. Using masterful tactics, Hannibal exploited the terrain and wind to his advantage, positioning his forces to trap the numerically superior Roman army. The battle resulted in a catastrophic defeat for Rome, with as many as 70,000 Roman soldiers killed and thousands more captured. The battle, a textbook example of the double envelopment maneuver, sent shockwaves through Rome. 1/5 of Rome's military-age population perished, and many prominent Romans, including senators and knights, were among the dead. Despite this overwhelming victory, Hannibal did not march on Rome, perhaps believing the city to be too well fortified or expecting Rome's allies to defect in the aftermath. Instead, he spent the winter of 216 to 215 BCE in Capua, which declared its loyalty to Hannibal. However, this period marked the beginning of Hannibal's gradual decline. The Roman strategy devised by Fabius to avoid direct engagements with Hannibal and instead focus on defending allied cities and cutting off his resources began to take effect. Lacking reinforcements from Carthage and unable to maintain his army through plunder, Hannibal faced logistical difficulties. Many of his Gallic allies, disillusioned by the lack of promised spoils, returned home. As his African veterans dwindled due to combat losses, Hannibal's forces eroded both in numbers and quality. Over the next several years, Hannibal's campaigns in Italy achieved only minor successes. He captured Tarentum, modern Taranto, in 213 BCE, but the Romans steadily regained the upper hand. By 211 BCE, the Romans had recaptured key cities, including Casilinum and Arpi. Hannibal marched to within 3 miles, 5 kilometers, of Rome in an attempt to draw Roman forces away from their siege of Capua, but the ploy failed and Capua fell to the Romans. Hannibal's situation worsened further with the fall of Syracuse in Sicily in 211 BCE and the Roman recapture of Tarentum in 209 BCE. Isolated and inadequately supported by Carthage, Hannibal's once formidable campaign in Italy was gradually reduced to defensive maneuvers as the tide of the war turned decisively in Rome's favor. While Hannibal waged war in Italy, Rome achieved significant victories in Spain, severely weakening Carthaginian influence in the region. In 208 BCE, Hasdrubal, Hannibal's brother, detached a force from the main Carthaginian army in Spain and crossed the Alps, likely following Hannibal's earlier route. Though without suffering significant losses, Hasdrubal aimed to reinforce Hannibal in Italy, but his plans were thwarted at the Battle of Metaurus in 207 BC. The Roman forces defeated Hasdrubal's army, killing him in the process, to deliver a grim message. Hasdrubal's severed head was sent to Hannibal's camp, prompting Hannibal to declare, "There lies the fate of Carthage despairingly." This crushing defeat ended any hope of Carthaginian recovery in central Italy. Following Hasdrubal's death, Hannibal concentrated his remaining forces in Bruttium in southern Italy. With the support of his remaining allies, he managed to hold out against Roman pressure for 4 more years. Meanwhile, the focus of the war shifted to North Africa, culminating in the decisive Battle of Zama in 202 BC. Both Hannibal and the Roman general Scipio Africanus sought to align with their respective Numidian allies. The battle took place near Zama Regia, with Hannibal facing a disadvantage due to a lack of cavalry. His army, composed of mercenaries in the front line, African infantry in the second, and his veteran troops in the third, was systematically outmaneuvered. The front lines were routed, and Scipio's forces, supported by Numidian cavalry under Massinissa, encircled Hannibal's remaining troops. Hannibal lost 20,000 men in the defeat, though he managed to escape capture. This marked the end of Hannibal's military service for Carthage and the final blow to its resistance against Rome. Scipio, who had been elected consul in 205 BCE, overcame initial Senate resistance to his strategy and took the war to North Africa. There, he neutralized Carthage's ally, the Massicilian Numidians, and placed Carthage itself in jeopardy. In response, Hannibal was forced to abandon his campaign in Italy in 203 BCE to defend his homeland. Although Carthage initially accepted Scipio's harsh peace terms during the winter of 204 to 203 BCE, they violated the terms of the armistice soon after. Hannibal, having regrouped the remnants of Carthage's forces at Hadramedum, modern Sousse, Tunisia, prepared for a final confrontation, but the war was effectively over. The defeat at Zama had sealed Carthage's fate, and Rome emerged as the dominant power in the Mediterranean. The treaty signed between Rome and Carthage a year after the Battle of Zama shattered Hannibal's lifelong goal of defeating Rome. Despite this, Hannibal's determination to continue opposing Roman dominance persisted. Accused by his political rivals in Carthage, particularly the merchant faction led by Hanno, of mismanaging the war, Hannibal nevertheless retained his military command and was appointed Safit, a civil magistrate. In this role, he worked to reform Carthage's administration and limit the power of the oligarchic ruling faction. Though his leadership was supported by Scipio Africanus, his efforts to combat corruption and graft among the Carthaginian nobility made him enemies. According to Livy, Hannibal's opponents accused him of encouraging Antiochus III of Syria to wage war against Rome. While the validity of this charge is unclear, it forced Hannibal to flee Carthage in 195 BCE. He first sought refuge in Tyre, and later at the court of Antiochus III in Ephesus. Initially welcomed, Hannibal advised Antiochus on military strategy as he prepared for war against Rome. However, Hannibal's presence and his strategic counsel became politically inconvenient, and he was sent to command Antiochus's fleet in the Phoenician cities. Lacking naval experience, Hannibal suffered defeat against the Romans at Side in Pamphylia. In 190 BCE, Antiochus faced a decisive loss at the Battle of Magnesia. The Romans demanded Hannibal's surrender as part of the peace terms. Once again, Hannibal fled, possibly traveling through Crete before seeking refuge at the court of King Prusias I of Bithynia. Prusias, at the time, was at war with King Eumenes II of Pergamum, a Roman ally. Hannibal served Prusias in this conflict, and during one naval engagement, he reportedly devised an early form of biological warfare by hurling baskets of venomous snakes onto enemy ships, leading to victory. Rome's influence in the eastern Mediterranean continued to grow, and pressure mounted on Prusias to surrender Hannibal. Sensing betrayal, Hannibal took precautions, stationing guards and identifying secret exits at his fortress in Labissa, near modern Gebze, Turkey. However, when his loyal servant reported that all escape routes were blocked by unknown guards, Hannibal realized his capture was imminent. Choosing to evade Roman captivity, Hannibal took his own life by poisoning himself. The exact year of Hannibal's death is uncertain, but is generally believed to have been 183 BC. His final act symbolized his enduring defiance of Rome, even in the face of inevitable defeat. Hannibal's character, as recorded by ancient historians, remains a subject of debate, largely influenced by Roman biases. While many Roman biographers painted him as cruel and treacherous, more balanced accounts by Polybius and Dio Cassius offer a fairer depiction. Despite accusations of cruelty, Hannibal demonstrated respect for his enemies on multiple occasions. He made agreements with Fabius Maximus for the exchange of prisoners and treated the bodies of fallen Roman generals, such as Tiberius Sempronius Gracchus and Lucius Aemilius Paulus, with dignity. Allegations of avarice also appear exaggerated, as they were primarily based on the financial demands of sustaining a military campaign rather than personal greed. One notable act of restraint was his sparing of Fabius's farm during his campaign in Campania, although this gesture may have been intended to spread rumors of a secret pact between the two leaders. Many charges leveled against Hannibal, including cannibalizing his soldiers during times of extreme hardship, are widely regarded as Roman propaganda. Polybius dismisses such claims as unfounded rumors, and no credible evidence suggests Hannibal ever resorted to such actions. Hannibal's bravery is undisputed, as is his temperance and discipline, his ability to lead a diverse army of men, composed of various nationalities, languages, and cultures, without significant discord underscores his exceptional leadership skills. Hannibal's care for his soldiers, elephants, and horses further reflects his humane and compassionate nature. The Romans often criticized his cunning and resourcefulness in war as treachery, referring to it as Punica Fides, Carthaginian faith. However, these very traits highlight Hannibal's strategic brilliance and audacity in the face of overwhelming odds. Stories of his sharp wit and eloquence abound, as he was fluent in both Greek and Latin, demonstrating his intellectual capabilities. Little personal information about Hannibal survives, but some insights into his appearance may be gleaned from silver coins minted in Cartagena around 221 BCE, the year of his election as general. These coins depict a youthful, beardless face, possibly providing the only visual representation of the legendary Carthaginian commander.